20th century, the world looked on with bated breath as a colossal empire teetered on the brink of monumental change. The epicenter was Russia, a nation steeped in centuries of monarchy, rich tradition, and deep-rooted cultural values. A time of change was looming, and Russia was a ticking time bomb, ready to explode at any moment. The winds of discontent were not just stirring, they were howling, shaking the very foundations of a once mighty czarist regime that had stood the test of time and conflict. This formidable political force, however, was beaten, battered, and ultimately collapsed under the oppressive weight of World War I and rampant social unrest that swept across nation like a voracious wildfire. By the cold February of 1917, Tsar Nicholas II, the last of his line, had abdicated the throne, clearing the way for a provisional government. This abdication marked a seismic shift in Russian politics, a radical change of guard that sent shockwaves rippling across the globe. Yet, despite the turnover, the thirst for more profound, lasting change was far from quenched. Fast forward to November 1917, as the Bolshevik Party led by Vladimir Lenin seized power. This was a critical juncture in the timeline of world history. A new chapter was unfolding in Russia's political landscape, as the Bolsheviks successfully overthrew the provisional government, marking the beginning of the Soviet era in Russian history. Lenin, the charismatic leader of the Bolsheviks, and his politically savvy comrades had made enticing promises to the exhausted Russian populace. Their pledges of peace, land, and bread resonated with the masses, who were disillusioned by the chaos and the destruction wrought by the ongoing Great War. The Bolsheviks capitalized on widespread discontent and swiftly consolidated their control over the central political apparatus. However, their radical reforms, which catered to the working classes and the peasantry, did not sit well with the privileged classes and the conservative elements in society. The Bolsheviks' controversial treaty with Germany, which effectively ended Russia's involvement in the Great War, was another contentious issue. This treaty was seen as a betrayal by many, and it caused a deep schism within Russia's diverse social and political factions. This ignited a ferocious backlash against the Bolshevik regime, setting off a chain of events that would plunge Russia into a bloody civil war. The stage was set for a brutal struggle for power, the Russian Civil War. The war was a complex and chaotic conflict, beginning in earnest in 1918. This war, a tumultuous period in history, was not just a mere disagreement, but a profound conflict that would shape the course of the world. It was a grand chessboard of political maneuverings and military strategies, with every move to determine the future of a nation. The key players were the Bolsheviks, commonly referred to as the Reds, and their formidable foes, a coalition of anti-Bolshevik forces, the Whites. The Reds, the catalysts of this great conflict, represented a new order, a new way of governance, envisioning a world of workers' control over production and government. On the other hand, the Whites were a conglomeration of contrasting ideologies and principles, a melting pot of monarchists, liberals, socialists, and military leaders. Each faction of the Whites had its unique perspective, their own version of an ideal society. They were distinct yet unified, bound by a shared motivation: their staunch opposition to the Bolsheviks. This war was not merely a battle of arms, but a clash of ideologies, a contest of wills, a conflict where each side believed their truth was the ultimate. It was a contest between two distinct visions of the nation's future, a battle of ideas that would determine the fate of millions. The Whites were a diverse group, comprising monarchists, liberals, socialists, and military leaders, all united by their opposition to the Bolsheviks. The early months of the war saw the Reds in a precarious position. As the conflict began to intensify, the Reds found themselves grappling with the escalating violence and instability of the political and military environment. These were indeed uncertain times, as they navigated the choppy waters of warfare, stretched thin across extensive territories, and grappling with the looming threat of the Whites. The Whites, not just a mere opposition, but an unyielding force, were bolstered by foreign intervention. These external powers, countries such as Britain, France, and the United States, lent their support, providing not just moral encouragement, but tangible military aid. The Whites, emboldened by this international backing, launched aggressive campaigns against the Bolsheviks, their strategies becoming more ruthless and their attacks more relentless with each passing day. However, even amidst such adversity, the Reds held their ground. They made strategic use of the territories under their control, areas that were densely populated and strategically important. Central and Western Russia, which included key cities like Moscow and Petrograd, acted as their stronghold. These regions were critical for their survival, providing them with the resources and manpower necessary to withstand the onslaught. Eventually, their strategic positioning and tenacious spirit proved fruitful. The Whites' campaigns, despite being aggressive and well-supported, could not dislodge the Reds from their stronghold. However, the Reds held their ground, capitalizing on their control of the densely populated Central and Western Russia, which included key cities like Moscow and Petrograd. As the war raged on, both sides committed horrific acts of violence and repression, leading to immense suffering among the Russian populace. The strain of the conflict was relentless, painting every day in hues of despair as people faced a harsh, relentless reality. The society, once vibrant and abloom with potential, was being systematically decimated. Lives were being crushed under the relentless wheels of conflict, leaving behind only echoes of their former selves. The people bore the brunt of the ensuing turmoil, their spirits battered by the ceaseless tide of brutality. The horrors weren't limited to the battlefield. The war had infiltrated every facet of life, turning homes into haunted shells of their former glory. Families were torn apart, were brought to their knees. Famine was a silent but deadly killer, weaving its way through communities. Disease was an equally ruthless adversary, striking indiscriminately and leaving a trail of devastation. The nation was in the grip of a monstrous pandemic, a grim testament to the nature of war. Millions of lives were claimed, they're snuffed out before they could fully take flight. Amid the chaos, however, there was a glimmer of hope. It was equally tragedy and opportunity. Desperate times necessitated resourcefulness. Despite the relentless hardships faced, the Reds possessed an indomitable spirit. They pooled their resources, grit and determination to form an army. This force was as formidable as the adversities they faced. The Red Army, under the leadership of Leon Trotsky, managed to rise from the ashes of war. Despite these hardships, the Reds managed to mobilize a formidable Red Army under the leadership of Leon Trotsky. By the end of 1919, the tide of war had dramatically turned in favor of the Reds, in a sequence of events that would indelibly change the course of history. The year was marked by some truly significant military engagements, and in the midst of them all, the Reds stood firm, embracing the challenge and displaying an enviable will to triumph. One of turning points occurred during their encounter with General Yudenich, a seasoned commander known for his strategic acumen. The battle unfolded near Petrograd, a city whose historical and cultural significance was matched only by its strategic importance. In a demonstration of military prowess that would be remembered for generations to come, the Reds managed to defeat Yudenich. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in the harsh, icy expanses of Siberia, another significant battle was brewing. This time, their adversary was Admiral Kolchak, a man who was equally formidable and feared. In a grueling contest that tested their mettle to the core, the Reds emerged victorious once again, reclaiming lost territories and pushing back the Whites. These victories not only bolstered their territorial claims, but also served to demoralize their opponents. In the following years, the momentum of the war shifted decisively. The Reds continued their relentless advance, slowly but surely quelling all pockets of resistance. By 1921, the major fighting had ceased, with the Reds emerging victorious. Their resilience had culminated in a victory that had seemed improbable just a few years prior, marking the dawn of a new era. The Russian Civil War was a crucial turning point in world history, marking the birth of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. This conflict, which erupted in the tumultuous aftermath of World War I, was a war of ideologies, a struggle for power between the Bolsheviks, who championed the cause of the proletariat, and the forces of the provisional government, who sought to bring about a democratic Russia. The Bolsheviks, under the leadership of Vladimir Lenin, stood for radical change. They promised to overthrow the existing order, to end the suffering of the common man, and to establish an egalitarian society. Their victory in the Civil War was a testimony to their determination and strategic prowess. This victory had far-reaching implications. It solidified the Bolsheviks' control over the vast expanses of Russia, leading to the establishment of the world's first socialist state. It marked the end of the rule of the Romanovs and the beginning of a new order in Russia, setting in motion a chain of events that would shape the course of the 20th. The victory came at a significant cost. It was a Pyrrhic victory, for it left Russia battered and bruised. The war had taken a heavy toll on the economy, leaving it in a state of shambles. The infrastructure was left in ruins, industries were languishing, the agricultural sector was on the brink of collapse. The populace too bore the brunt of the war. They were scarred by the horrors of a war that had torn their nation apart and had robbed them of their peace and tranquility. The consequences of the war were profound and far-reaching. The economy was left in ruins, and the populace was scarred by the horrors of war. Despite the war finally coming to a close, it merely signified the commencement of a fresh chapter in history. The Bolsheviks, who had now undergone a transformative rebranding, reinventing themselves as the Communist Party, found themselves at the helm of a new beginning. The daunting task that before them was the monumental mission of not just reconstructing a nation that had been battered and bruised by relentless conflict, but also implementing their long-cherished socialist aspirations. Their ideals, deeply entrenched in the principles of socialism, had been the guiding light in their arduous journey so far. It was their indomitable spirit and unwavering faith in these principles that had led them to emerge triumphant and take on this gargantuan responsibility. The aftermath of the war, hence, required a painstaking effort to rebuild, restructure and re-establish a nation which had been ravaged by war, and delicately piecing together its social fabric, while simultaneously embedding the philosophy of socialism into the very core of its existence. But the Russian Civil War was much more than a mere struggle for dominion. It was a battle not just of military prowess, but of ideologies, principles, and beliefs. It was an ideological war that stretched far beyond the physical boundaries of the country, spilling over into the global arena, influencing political discourse worldwide. This seminal conflict was not just a significant chapter in Russian history, but a pivotal event that profoundly shaped the course of the 20th century. In the end, the Russian Civil War serves as a stark reminder of the tumultuous path to power and the profound impact of ideological conflicts. This conflict was the culmination of an array of political, social, and economic struggles that had been simmering beneath the surface for years. With the Bolshevik Revolution igniting the fuse, the nation was plunged into a chaotic vortex of violence, confusion, and upheaval. It was a time when brother fought against brother, ideologies clashed, and the future of the nation hung in the balance. The Russian Civil War was not simply a battle between two opposing forces. It was a complex tapestry of shifting allegiances, geopolitical intrigues, and struggle for survival. It was a brutal, bloody conflict that left deep scars on the Russian psyche, scars that still linger to this day. Yet, amidst the chaos and destruction, there were also moments of heroism, of courage, and of resilience. Ordinary people, swept up in the currents of history, found within themselves the strength to endure, to fight, and to hope for a better future. As we delve deeper into this pivotal period, we uncover a wealth of stories that illuminate the human condition. Stories of love and loss, of sacrifice and survival, of ambition and betrayal. Each story, each individual, each moment adds another layer to our understanding of this complex, turbulent time. As we delve into the annals of history, we continue to unravel the complexities and nuances of this pivotal period in the life of a nation that continues to intrigue us to this day.